All right, let's get into one of the greatest novels ever written, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Now, you might think a book from over 200 years ago would feel, a little dated, but trust me, it's still so incredibly sharp, witty, and surprisingly relatable. We're going to break down this incredible story of love, class, and some seriously scandalous misunderstandings.
And it all kicks off with what is probably the most famous opening line in all of literature. This sentence right here, it's not just a clever little observation. It is the engine that drives the entire plot. It perfectly frames a world where marriage isn't just about love. It's about business. It's about security. It's about climbing that social ladder.
And believe me, no one feels the pressure of that truth more than the Bennet family. You see, Mrs. Bennet has basically one single mission in life, to marry off her 5 daughters. So why the desperation? Well, it's because their home is entailed. What that means is when Mr. Bennet dies, the house and all the money goes to the closest male relative, leaving the women totally out in the cold. I mean, the stakes could not be higher.
So you can just imagine the chaos when a rich, single, good-looking guy named Mr. Bingley rents the massive estate right next door. For Mrs. Bennet, this is like hitting the lottery. This man is a potential lifeline, a golden ticket that could save at least one of her daughters from a really bleak future. The game is officially on.
Okay, so the first big scene happens at a local ball. This is the social event of the season, and it's where we meet our key players. It's here the Bennets get their first real look at Mr. Bingley and his very different, very, very wealthy friend, Mr. Darcy. And, well, as the title of the book suggests, these first impressions, they're going to cause a whole lot of trouble.
The difference between these two guys is just night and day. On one hand, you have Mr. Bingley. He's charming, he's friendly, he's dancing with everyone. He's an instant hit, especially with Jane, the oldest and most beautiful of the Bennet sisters. And then there's Mr. Darcy. Yeah, he's handsome, and he's rumored to be insanely rich, but he's a total social disaster. He just comes off as proud, cold, and like he can't be bothered with anyone there.
And this is the moment. The spark that lights the fuse for the whole story. Darcy says this absolutely brutal takedown of our hero, the smart and witty Elizabeth Bennet. And the worst part? She's standing right there. She hears every word. This one comment completely wounds her pride and locks in her prejudice against him from the get-go.
And there you have it, the two central flaws of the book, perfectly summed up by our two main characters. Darcy's pride makes him act like he's better than everyone else, and Elizabeth's prejudice, which was born from that nasty insult, makes her judge him instantly and see everything he does through that negative filter.
Now, Elizabeth's terrible opinion of Darcy feels totally justified when she meets this dashing soldier, Mr. Wickham. He is charming, and he tells her this sob story about how Darcy basically stole his inheritance out of pure jealousy. This tale of cruelty fits perfectly with what she already believes about Darcy, so she buys it completely, hook, line, and sinker.
So after months of all this tension and misunderstanding, where Darcy, by the way, has secretly fallen in love with the woman he first insulted, the whole story just explodes. We hit the first major climax, and it is a confrontation that changes absolutely everything.
Completely out of the blue, Darcy shows up and drops this bombshell declaration of love on Elizabeth. But here's the thing. It might be the most insulting marriage proposal in history. While he's telling her he loves her, he's also making it crystal clear that he's doing it despite her embarrassing family and her lower social status.
Elizabeth, as you can imagine, is absolutely furious. She just unleashes on him. She rejects him with this killer line and then lists all his crimes. He's arrogant, he sabotaged her sister's chance at happiness with Bingley, and he destroyed the life of poor Mr. Wickham. She leaves him completely speechless.
But it's not over. The next morning, Darcy finds her and hands her a letter. And this isn't some apology or a love note. No, it's a detailed, point-by-point takedown of every single one of her accusations. In it, he reveals the whole truth about Wickham, about his lies, his debts, even his attempt to run away with Darcy's own teenage sister.
This is the moment the entire novel pivots. As Elizabeth reads this letter, her whole world just shatters. She realizes that her famous wit, her pride in her own judgment, was completely clouded by her prejudice. She'd been totally fooled by Wickham's charm and totally misread Darcy's pride. For the very first time, she sees that she's the one who's been acting like a fool.
Just as Elizabeth is trying to process all this, a real disaster hits the Bennet family.
We're talking about a scandal so big it could destroy the reputation of every single one of the sisters for good. The youngest sister, Lydia, who's reckless and boy-crazy, has run off with, you guessed it, Mr. Wickham. Now, back then, for a young woman to live with a man she wasn't married to meant total social ruin for her and her entire family. And it becomes pretty clear pretty fast that Wickham has no intention of marrying her unless he gets a massive payday. And who comes to the rescue? Mr. Darcy. In secret, he takes complete control of the situation. He tracks them down, he pays off Wickham's enormous gambling debts with his own money, and then he basically forces him to marry Lydia. And he does all of this without asking for any credit, simply because he loves Elizabeth and wants to save her family from total disgrace. Oh, but the drama isn't over yet. Darcy's terrifying, super snobby aunt, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, hears a rumor that Darcy might propose to Elizabeth. So she actually travels all the way to the Bennet's house to forbid it, insulting Elizabeth to her face. But Elizabeth completely stands her ground. And funny enough, it's her spirited refusal to back down that gives Darcy hope that maybe, just maybe, her feelings have changed. And all of that brings us to the really satisfying conclusion. All the secrets are out, the personal flaws have been faced, and both Elizabeth and Darcy have grown so much as people. The stage is set for a second chance. First things first, Darcy comes clean to Bingley about separating him from Jane and encourages his friend to go back. Bingley does exactly that, and he doesn't waste any time proposing to the lovely Jane, which finally secures at least one happy ending for the Bennets. Shortly after, Darcy and Elizabeth find themselves on another walk, but this time it's different. There are no insults, no anger. Elizabeth humbly thanks him for saving her sister, and Darcy admits his feelings for her are as strong as ever. They both admit how wrong they were, and he proposes again. And this time, she very, very happily says yes.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, Pride and Prejudice is a classic for a reason. Its lessons are just as relevant today as they were then. It's a huge warning against letting first impressions become prejudices we can't see past. And it's a story about how important and how hard it is to really know ourselves, to admit when we're wrong, and to let ourselves grow.
And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. In our world of social media and instant hot takes, we are making snap judgments all day, every day. So the novel forces us to ask ourselves, how often do we let our own pride or our own prejudice stop us from seeing people for who they truly are?